Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wyatt. I'm the Associate Director of Admissions here at Schwarzman Scholars, and I'm so delighted to welcome you all to our webinar today. As we approach the September 22nd U.S. Global Application deadline for Schwarzman Scholars, we thought it'd be helpful to get members of our team together to interact with you all through this process. This is one of our favorite parts of the job, is getting to know each of you and supporting you through the process of really going through a reflection process and an articulation process of your leadership narrative throughout the Schwarzman Scholars selection process. As I said, my name is Wyatt. I've been a part of Schwarzman Scholars since last May of 2019, and we're all here because we believe deeply in the mission that this program is all about, which is really to build a global network of leaders from around the world who are committed to building mutual understanding between China and the rest of the world, China, their home country, and ultimately with the purpose of building a more peaceful world for all of us. And I know we can all agree on our webinar today that that mission has never been more important than it is right now. So I could not be more excited that you all are excited about that mission as well, and that you all are engaging with Schwarzman Scholars and are considering applying. And I think you're going to have a really fruitful experience today interacting with the team and getting your questions answered as we approach the deadline. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to the incredibly talented and amazing colleagues I get to work with every day on this program, our admissions team, and we have a few members represented here today, and we're really excited to spend this time with you. So I will turn it over to my colleague, Arlie.
Thanks so much, Wyatt. As Wyatt mentioned, we're really excited to connect with you virtually today. I'm Arlie, and I'm one of the admissions outreach and selection officers, and I've been with the program since 2017. I'll popcorn over to Christian.
Hi, everyone. We're delighted that you're joining our conversation today. Tomorrow marks the 20-day mark till the deadline, so please get your questions in. I'm also a member of the admissions team. I've been recruiting for the program since 2015, and just to think about how different the process has been since the beginning is a marker of how resilient this program is. So we're delighted to have this conversation with you. I'm going to popcorn it over to Alicia.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Alicia Pan. I am an admissions selection and events officer. I'm just about ready to celebrate my 1-year anniversary working for Schwarzman Scholars, but I've been in the higher education recruitment space for almost 6 years now. I'm going to pass it over now to Federico.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. It's really a pleasure. I'm really glad to see so many of you joining us today. Application deadline is coming soon, and as Wyatt presented it, all my friends here, I think it's a real important time for everyone to be joining our mission. I'm originally from Brazil. I joined the admissions team at Schwarzman Scholars 3 years ago, and I'm very, very proud to be joined by this amazing team of colleagues and friends. And I'll turn things over back to Arlie to start our popcorn round of questions, and thank you all for already starting with your questions.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Frey. Before we get started, just a housekeeping item. We see that a lot of you are already asking questions, and for a reminder for those of you who are just joining in, to use the Q&A box down at the bottom of this Zoom webinar. We will have a mix of questions that we typically get a lot and answer those, and we'll also be taking your questions from that Q&A box as well. So to get things started, I'll ask the question that we get a lot, and I'll turn it over to Christian and Frey to answer this one. So for the two of you, when is the best time to submit your application? Is it preferable to have a longer professional experience before applying? Does it make a difference to apply weeks before the deadline?
I'll lead off with that, and then I'll pass it over to Frey to fill in the answer. The best time to apply is when you're ready. And so I think when you look at the composition of our class, which ranges from 18 to 28 from different countries, different sectors, it really should be the aha moment of where your story starts to emerge with the Schwarzman story. And the mission of what we're trying to do is strengthen ties with China. And so if it makes sense, given your sector, given your experience, it's really a matter of when you feel like there's an obvious purpose in your application. So we know that it's a shiny program. We know that it's a cool opportunity, but we often find candidates who just apply because it's so cool and they get caught up in the allure of the program without thinking, when is the best time given my career trajectory, given my family, given the opportunity that's presented to me. And so we found that over time, the applicants who really sit on the knowledge of Schwarzman scholars and thinking when's the best time in my career to jump over is really could be as soon as your undergrad, 2, 3, 4 years out. So it really depends on you. I'll flip it over to Federico to add to that and then ask the next question.
Right. No, thank you, Christian. And yeah, we do receive this question a lot. And I mean, I just complimenting what Christian just said. We don't have any type of a target or specific quota of people who, have some years of experience after college or know, where they're from. So I think the most important thing is, and I think the one of the recipes for a successful application is to really go deep into a reflection process and figure out what is the moment of your life, why going to China or applying for this particular program will make sense in a trajectory that is already happening, a trajectory of personal development and growth. So I think these are the question that most important is important that you ask to yourself and to your peers and to the people who are helping you throughout this process. So yeah, I think this is the worst answer you could get because it is a very general one, but I mean, the right question, the right answer only you can find. So let's continue with the popcorn. I'll ask the next question, which is also a question that we received already from one of our attendees, and we also get a lot, especially now that we're coming close to the application deadline, which is how important it is to have a previous China experience. Of course, this is a global affairs program, but based in China at Tsinghua University. And many people say, well, I've never been to China. I don't speak any Mandarin. I have absolutely no previews or experience in China despite the interest. So I will direct this question to Alicia and Arlie. So how important it is to have a Chinese experience?
Thanks, Frey. I'm happy to take that one first. So it's not important. I would say half the cohort is either from China, has had previous experience traveling through the country, but then the other half has never studied the language, has never traveled outside of their home country. So previous China experience does not play a role in your application. I think what's important to note though, is for those applicants that do have extensive China experience, you need to be able to articulate on your application how this program will be different from what you've already done. And that's really important to showcase on your application.
I think Arlie hit it the nail right on the head in that regard with her response. So there is no China experience necessary. Again, as my colleagues have mentioned before, this is a leadership development program that's based in China. So our focus primarily is going to be on leadership development, but certainly we want you to gain the China context. So when you are going to be in positions of power and influence in the future, you will be able to have more nuanced understandings of the China perspective, of other perspectives from around the world, other sectors as well. So that's exactly right. No China experience is necessary. I'm going to then switch it over and ask the next question. And so the question will be directed to Christian and Arlie. So I am concerned about how the admissions team will perceive my academic trajectory. Maybe I've switched schools, I've dropped out because of personal or financial reasons or low grades. Should I explain what happened? And if so, how and where should I do that in the application?
Arlie, I'll have you start off and then I'll fill in.
Awesome. So, there's a part of the application called the clarification of application, and it's an opportunity for you to provide more context to what you've already shown in other parts, in your essays, in your resume, in other parts of the application. If you had a
I'll go ahead and jump in.
GPA or you didn't do well in a course. And so don't, so definitely use that opportunity to provide more context.
So we lost you a bit, Arlie, but I think that I'll fill in on that is that we aren't looking at your test score for English eligibility or GPA as a metric to kind of understand and weed people out. It's important to couple the context with your application. So with that clarification comment, it is important to detail what had happened, what is true, and therefore what was your conversion from anguish to action. So if you had some significant challenge, how then did you act on top of that? Not complaining, not necessarily blaming others, but really focusing on what was the growth. That was what you experienced in those situations. So if you are thinking about that, if anything gives you pause in your academic trajectory, then be sure to share some of the context. But of course, we appreciate brevity. So where you can try to keep that written piece, we appreciate it. The readers also appreciate it as well. I'll jump into the next admissions application related question. And this is regarding recommenders. So we do get a lot of questions that are about recommenders. Is it more important for recommenders to have a higher ranking title or for them to be people who know me well? And I'm going to flip this over to Federico and Alicia to answer.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Christian. Yes, we do get this question a lot, and I know that some people already asked questions about recommendations. We'll cover them hopefully before the end of this session. I mean, I think it's, again, it is an important mix, and I go back to what I said first of this being an important part of the application. First thing to say is every component and every part of the application matters, and it will be revised in the context of your entire application. So don't just think that there is a team reading letters of recommendation, another team only reading transcripts. It's every application is giving full attention. And the letters of recommendation, to say the least, are, you know, everything matters. So the person recommending, we expect and we understand that people who are who sit in a position of management or leadership are in a better condition to identify young talent and promising leadership. So of course, this doesn't mean you need to get a letter of recommendation from the president or the CEO of a company or somebody, but someone who is in a position, be in academia, a professor, an academic advisor, or a mentor in your field of work, in your business. So it is important that the person who is recommending you can speak to very different parts of your character and personality and skills, and also has a position and some kind of title that attests to the capacity of this person to vouch for your leadership abilities. But, you know, that said, the content of the letter is obviously just as important, if not more important. You know, the fact that the person knows you is very important. You know, it doesn't make any sense if you get a letter from someone famous or someone with a big title who have never met you and cannot talk in person and in depth about your characteristics, about your strengths, and also about your weakness and room to grow, right? So I think a good mix of that is very important. Choosing who your recommenders are is a very, very important part of your strategy as you put together an application. And yeah, everything counts. Alicia, how can you add to that?
I think you were just right. For all of those in attendance today, choose people who will champion you. So I think it's more important to find those people who know your story well, who are your fans or supporters, who are there for you no matter what. They are going to be the ones who are really going to give us testimonials of your character and how you have expressed your leadership beforehand. Federico, why don't you ask the next question to another one of our colleagues?
Sure. So yeah, and so, all right, let me ask the next one. So I'll actually turn things back to Arlie and Alicia again, and we'll complete the round. So a lot of people also ask us about quotas or targets or specific, you know, many people from different parts of the world and different disciplines. Schwarzman Scholars is a program open that invites applicants from all parts of the world, from all disciplines, but people are concerned saying, well, I'm a student of biology. How do I have a chance to really, what are my chances to getting admitted, or I'm from this particular country or part of the world? So the question is, are there specific quotas in our selection process. And if you, Arlie and Alicia, could talk about a little bit about explaining the behind the scenes of the selection process to and answer this specific question of, are there quotas or specific targets for the program?
I'm happy to take this one, and it's pretty simple. There are no quotas for the program. A goal of ours is to bring together a diverse cohort each year, and the countries that are represented, the universities that are represented in each class changes from year to year. I think in the past 5 cohorts, we've had probably 75 or so different countries represented. And as I mentioned, that changes each year. And it's exciting for us to have a new country represented, a new student who is studying a very niche area of interest. And so aside from the 40-20% breakdown, we're looking to put together, you know, students that come from different backgrounds and experiences to really make the program so unique.
Just to clarify as well from Arlie's response, the 40-40-20 breakdown is going to be 40% of our incoming cohort every year will be from the US, 40% will be from the rest of the world, and 20% will be Chinese nationals. Arlie, why don't you ask the next question?
Awesome, thanks Alicia. So I'll popcorn this over to Christian and Frey. How are applications evaluated? Who participates in the selection process and interviews the candidates?
Frey, how about you take the readers and I'll talk about the interviews.
Sure, good idea. So yeah, we have a group of, basically the selection process is done in a three-phase selection process. All applications are first evaluated for the completion and eligibility. So applications which are not complete, that don't attend all the requirements and all the documentation are rejected. Of course, this is a very competitive process, and we have to stick to the requirements there. And then those applications who pass completion and who attend all the demands and the requirements, they're passed to a group of over 100 readers from around the world. And these are people in various disciplines, people who have experienced reading and evaluating applications, not only for our program, but for other competitive international scholarship and graduate programs. And we have people from various industries as well. So if you're submitting your application, you can be sure that you will, if you're from a different part of the world that is not the United States or China or Europe, the people reading and evaluating your application are people who are aware and very experienced in evaluating and understanding the context where candidates come from. So yeah, the reading process goes on, and it's actually a very expedited one. One of the many unique features of our selection process is that it happens in a very fast way. So after application deadline, in less than a month, applications are revised by, each application is read by 2 independent readers, and then each application is recommended or not for the next phase of the selection process, which is the interviews. Christian.
Yeah, so the interviews are one of the hallmarks of our program. It's the opportunity to take the most competitive applicants from the applicant pool and then put them in front of a panel of people who are comprised of CEOs, university leaders, private sector, public sector leaders, and essentially is an opportunity to hear directly from the candidate about themselves, about their leadership, their intellect, and their character. So it's something that we coordinate, again, in a very short time frame. In about 2 weeks' time do we complete this whole process. And the only thing that I'll add about the interviews is that it's really a gut check on authentic leadership, of recognizing where your values come from and asking questions about adversity, asking questions about challenges, about lessons learned from your experiences, but really is to take the paper to the person is why we have to have these interviews in place. And so if you are selected for interviews, we're going to have a lot of opportunity for those. And of course, with the COVID-19 pandemic, these are going to be conducted virtually each year. But the fact of the matter is now where we are in the admissions timeline is to focus on your application. I know we get a lot of questions regarding the interviews and more information will be provided then. I'll continue on with the next question, which is what advice will you have for an applicant who did not attend a prestigious school in their country, in their state or country, i.e. a top-ranked world-class university? What are my chances of being admitted into the program? And so I'll flip this over to Arlie and Alicia.
Yeah, I'll take the start of this. Everyone, what's so exciting and what I've loved and grown to love about working for Schwarzman Scholars, this is an amazing opportunity that, again, we have no quotas, and we are really looking towards identifying, cultivating, and selecting, you know, scholars from around the world who are going to be promising young global leaders. And so with that in mind, there is a we're looking at every applicant and seeing how have you leveraged the cards you have been dealt with in life. That's colloquially speaking. But essentially, we want to see how you've maximized the environmental context that you have been navigating so far in your life. We appreciate the nuances that you all have lived through. And so we're just seeing how you have really taken advantage of all of these opportunities. So you are not disadvantaged in any way if you did not attend a prestigious university, if you have a rather seemingly atypical educational experience. That's why, again, there's such diversity in our cohorts every year. So we really appreciate that. Life is very complex. There is no perfect lived experience, and we want to meet you where you are. So that's very important. So the idea of needing to get prestige, a prestige pipeline that we have, that's not the way our selection process works. We really are identifying those scholars, potential scholars who just have those innate leadership skills. And through Schwarzman Scholars, we continue to refine and enhance those skills to make you the best versions of yourself after this process. Arlie, do you want to add anything else?
Alicia, I could not have said it any better myself. I'm happy to jump into the Q&A box. We're getting a lot of questions here, and so want to get to those. For those questions that we aren't able to get to during this webinar, we encourage you to reach out to admissions@schwarzmanscholars.org, and we can connect with you offline. And then for those of you who are just joining in, make sure, you know, for those questions that you do have, to type those into the Q&A box down below. So we've actually been getting a lot of questions about the video component of the application. So I will, I'll turn this over to Christian and Frey. You know, any tips for developing the 1-minute video for the application? What should we articulate?
I'll jump in first, and then Frey, I'll flip it over to you to ask the next question. The video is a component of this landscape of leadership. So it's another opportunity, and you can kind of think about the short answer, the bio in and of itself, that these are each telling a story about who you are. And so with the video, we want to see you as a human. So my piece of advice is be human, be fun. Think about what is the place where you're in your flow state, where you're really enjoying it, you're not paying attention to the time. We've seen videos that include whitewater rafting, a cappella videos, cooking shows, TED Talks, business pitches, anything that makes you you. And so if you're not sure how to tell your own story, then ask someone else, how would I tell my own story? And then you'd be able to put that in a 60-second video for the application process. Have fun with it, because it's one of those things like, is that X factor in the greatest masterpiece, whether it be a burst of color or a flavor that is, you know, the secret ingredient. I think about it in that way, where it's a little different than the rest of the medium in the application. Frey, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Christian. I think I go with the same. And I think two important things to acknowledge, and I think they're important for the video, and I agree that the same applies to the short answer. First one is that there's no template for a video. You know, it's one of those parts of the application. If you go around and you type on Google, like how to write leadership essays or statement of purposes, there are lots of templates out there. And these, you know, after reading many applications, we kind of come across with some conventional models, but there's nothing out there saying how to do or how to produce a great Schwarzman Scholars application video. I mean, stick to the 60 seconds, but you can do whatever you want with that. You can produce or not. We have our internal yearly Oscars for the great produced and funny videos that we receive. But, you know, I think it's really an open canvas for you to explode. And I think the second interesting aspect and unique aspect about the video is that, I forgot what I was going to say. Well, I think it's, you know, it just try it doesn't count. I remember what I was going to say. It doesn't count against you. And that also applies for the short answers. So this is a part and a component of your application that can only count for you. You can use that to repeat and to solidify a message that you try to put in a different part of your application. You can use that to explain a hobby or some area of your character or personality that you weren't able to explain or justify in other parts of the application. But the video can only count in your favor and never against you. All right. If anybody else.
Also add in, just again, to follow up on my whole response to the prestigious schooling aspect of things too. Again, the videos are another opportunity for you to showcase your context, the context in which you're working in. So yes, while we've mentioned some examples of past videos, please be rest assured, don't spend lots of money to get this produced. Don't do anything out there that's not inherently in your wheelhouse or what you're comfortable doing. Again, we want to meet you where you are. We want you to be able to narrate your own story. So please do not feel pressured to have a very fancy production by any means. Go ahead, Fred.
Cool. So agreed. So next question, there are also a few questions about transcripts and the GPA. So I'll direct this to Arlie and Christian, if you want to jump in too. So is GPA really important in this scholarship? If I got a lower GPA, is there any opportunities for me to obtain the scholarship to extracurricular activities contributing in getting the scholarship? Arlie.
I'm happy to take this one first. So, you know, there is no GPA requirement for the program. However, you know, these are high achieving students, and Tsinghua University is a rigorous academic program. For those of you who may have a lower GPA and again, want to provide context to a failed course your first year, or where you might have struggled in other years during your undergraduate experience, use the clarification of application to provide more context to that you know, difficulty of yours. Christian, anything else to add?
Yeah, the important thing is that we're looking at all of these things in partnership with each other. So there are a bunch of levers of your leadership, that it's not just a single factor, a recommendation letter, a transcript, a short answer that's going to knock someone else out of the pool. We're asking the question of what is the story that's being told? And a lot of applicants see this as an invitation to throw in all their achievements, throw in everything that they do. And it's a long inventory. But that's not the question that we're asking. We're actually asking what's important, what matters, and what are you committing to for the rest of your life on a problem that you're trying to fix, and how is China going to be a part of that? And so you really have to think about distilling down your entire application narrative into a digestible story that we're trying to understand, because things like empathy, things like listening, things like collaborating with difference are what makes this program come alive. And so you have to choose. It's akin to like when you gather 600 hours of footage and you're reducing it down to 60 minutes of your favorite episode of your favorite TV show. And so you're trying to do that in this application process, so that it's an exercise in simplification and just telling us what you need to tell us in the way that you need to. Do you need 1 or 2 resume pages? Well, it depends on how much leadership that you want to share with us. That really tells your story in the most accurate way. We're getting a lot of questions about that leadership piece as well. So I do want to ask some top tips from my fellow colleagues here about how to approach the leadership essay. There's a lot of questions about, should I focus on one answer in depth or a breadth of leadership, but how do I tell my own story? And so I'll flip that over to Alicia to start off, and then you can popcorn it over to whoever.
Sounds great. That's a wonderful question. And yes, I noticed that there are lots of them coming in. When I've been doing some advising sessions earlier this summer and continuing to do so, I really encourage lots of applicants. They always ask, you know, it seems like everything just doesn't make sense. And so we spend our time just getting to know their stories. So for all of you applicants out there, I really encourage you to kind of have this design thinking mindset of approaching your application. So why do all of these things matter to you? Right? It's really this application process, I hope you view it as, regardless of the outcome, a really great check-in point with yourself. Are you aligning yourself with what you want to do? Are you living the life path that you want to pursue? So why do all these things matter to you? And why do they care? After you get these common traits, then you ask again yourself why. You're peeling back layers of an onion, as I'd like to describe it. So then you really get to the core of why these things matter to you and what are the characteristics that you define your leadership and life narrative to be. So that's really difficult work. We, as a society, I don't think we give enough time to reflect upon ourselves and to really do that hard work of investigating what matters to us. But that's what we really want to hear, kind of this crystallization, as Christian kind of mentioned before in his other answers, of what are these things and narratives that matter to me? And so just keep on investigating, doing that work. And there's, again, no straightforward format about that we expect you to deliver this information. Please abide by the word count, but in terms of delivery, of style, it's really going to be a testament of your personality and who you are. So it is whatever you want it to be. We have some people who are more perhaps STEM oriented, and so they think and express themselves in a more technical manner. Whereas we have other people who are artists and humanists, and they go with more expository writing. So again, we want to meet you where you are. We will review your application the way you deliver it. So you are your own author, your own narrator. And so, Frey, do you want to add anything else to that response?
Sure. No, thank you. I'll add a few notes, because obviously this is perhaps the top question we always receive, like how to demonstrate your leadership and everything. And I think, you know, I always tell an anecdote. I was not, you know, I live in the United States for quite a while now, but I know that, you know, I'm very well aware of other academic systems out of North America in which, you know, writing leadership essays and writing autobiographic essays and even asking for letters of recommendations, this is very unusual and very out of the zone of comfort for people who are experienced with other educational systems or even professional systems in which, you know, it's more test-based, and that's not how you prove your worth. It's not by writing and reflecting about yourself. So we acknowledge this challenge, but we also acknowledge that everybody's on the same page on that, and we have to face that. And I think, you know, one word that we've mentioned here in this session already many times, but it's authenticity. And I think it is important as you go through this reflective and reflection process that Alicia was mentioning, you try to be authentic to yourself and try to, you know, speak to your own audience rather than try to impress an imaginary admissions committee that you may think about, or people that you don't know who you think you're trying to impress. So it's not about, I think another thing related to that is not about showing your medals. It's not about writing a prose version of your CV. It's not about listing all your achievements. There are other parts of the application in which you can do that more effectively and more directly, your CV included. And I think it's more than talking about leaders and how you are a leader in absolute terms or leadership as an end goal, is to tell us about the process and the learning process and the learning curve of becoming a leader and where you are in that process. You know, Schwarzman Scholars is a program that tries to recruit leaders, young leaders who are in a path of growth, but we have no illusion that in 1 year of program, even though this is an incredible program, we can round out senior leaders in business. We want to help people and support people in a trajectory of growth. So yeah, I think I spoke more than I wanted on those topics, and I'll turn things. I don't know if Arlie or Christian want to add to that, because I think this is a central question to everybody.
Yeah, well, I'm happy to, I think we should pivot and ask, there's been a few questions from young professionals. I see here someone who is completing a PhD, someone who already has a previous master's degree. Here at the bottom, and this sort of sums it all up, what advice do you have for applicants who are applying with 4 years of work experience? How are we supposed to demonstrate academic proficiency? So I'll popcorn this over to Christian. For those young professional applicants or those with previous master's or PhD degrees interested in applying to the program, Christian, what advice would you have for them?
Yeah, one of the things that we're inspired by in the admissions office is that variance brings value. And so we don't want candidates who are all the same people. And so we love that we have PhD, law people, doctors, engineers, people who work in the humanities, economists, because I think something like COVID and the racial reckoning has proven that epidemiologists, engineers, educators, they all have to work together. And so you have to really embody what it is that you're bringing to the table. Now, if you're coming with the different years of work experience, it is about thinking about, again, because this is a leadership program, it's not how do I connect to the China piece, it's how do I connect to leadership that is connected to China. That is the central mission of what our program is all about, is that no matter what industry that you lead, there is tangentially, and it only takes one Google search to see what the connection is, that China is really at the center of that whole conversation. So when it comes to articulating that narrative as a young professional, you shouldn't do it because it's just a cool, shiny program. You should do it because it's going to accelerate your leadership in a way that is going to transform the communities that you're serving. And so you want to think about who am I trying to benefit as a result of doing this, and how China is going to be a step in that ladder. Because what we hope is that eventually you're a CEO, a co-founder, a president, or some kind of senior level dignitary, that in your ascendancy to leadership, that you'll think about its connection to China, but also trying to transform the world in a good and positive way. So when you think about where you are in your own experience, I think people often try to compare themselves to an invisible applicant pool. You don't know who's in there. You don't know what else is out there, but really learn how to embody what it is that you're putting together, because it's that authentic leadership that our panelists, our readers, our selectors go bonkers over, is that, oh my gosh, this person doesn't even know how shiny they are. And they're doing good stuff. They're working hard. They keep growing. But at the end of the day, they want to make something better. And whatever that is, you have to define it in your own particular way. I do want to ask a question. We're seeing a lot of questions here about re-applicants. And so, as you know, we've been a program that's been around for only 4 or 5 cycles of admissions. And so there are often people who apply, don't get in, maybe get interviewed, and then will reapply in the next subsequent cycle. And so what advice do people have in terms of thinking about a reapplication process, even looking at recommenders, or what is the best way to go about that if I've reapplied or if I applied to the program before? So I'm going to focus over to Arlie, and then you can pass it over to the next person.
Thanks, Christian. So for reapplicants, we encourage you to reapply to the program. We have had a handful of students, apply a second time or a third time and end up getting into the program. What we do want to articulate, though, is in that second iteration or that third iteration of your Schwarzman Scholars application, you need to really showcase your growth, how your leadership development has changed from the first iteration of your application. So really highlighting what is, what has changed and what is really different than that first application is important to the admissions committee when reviewing a reapplicant. I'll turn things over to Alicia to ask the next question.
That's great. So there's lots of questions also coming in, generally asking about Schwarzman Scholars, our program, and our short-term, long-term projections for being part, interacting and continuing to offer this program in the COVID-19 context. And so why don't we, Christian, why don't you take it away and start off with our response?
So as far as the short term and long term, as we know, we're in an incredible time of instability. And so I think resilience is the answer that I'm thinking about as far as like what this program is looking to deliver in terms of the timeline. So we don't have all the answers, but we are assured that we're going to try to build these responses and contingency plans in a way that is phased. And so with the current start of our cohort, they're beginning online, but our aspiration, or at least our hope, is that we'll be able to get them within the year to China. And I think one of the important things that our executive director has mentioned is that you can't defer leadership. You can't offset the program in person because it's not something, because you want to wait until you're in an in-person study piece. So I think there are a lot of different goal settings that we're thinking of. But it's kind of up in the air, and we're changing and adapting as is needed, and as borders start opening up and as things start coming together, then we will build those plans. But I think an important thing to keep in mind is that this is co-authored, that we really rely on the feedback of scholars and the participants, the staff, the team, that we don't go about this process alone. And so we really have to be able to think about problems in an intergenerational way, from the staff to the students to even our prospective applicants. So a lot of the ways in which we've adapted also take in consideration the end users of those who are applying and how they're putting this all together. So I'll flip it over to Frederico to add to that question.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I think, one way to see this, or one way that I see this, is looking at the past of what, the beginning of 2020, how this program, how COVID has impacted the program since the very beginning of this year, to how the program is being impacted presently, and this current admission process and the future. And I start, looking back and seeing, obviously, there's no way to deny that this pandemic has impacted all of us, all of our lives. And the program being based in Beijing was in the epicenter of a lot that was going on right in the beginning. And the way the program reacted to that, the scholars, the staff, the community, and the resilience it was showing, the way the program, a young program like this, has reinvented itself in incredible ways, has really shown a lot of has really reaffirmed to all of us the necessity of having a program like this. Now, presently, for the current admissions process, and for us, we have to say that our schedule hasn't been impacted. The major impact that we will have is basically the interviews, that this year, in case you are applying this year and you're considering and you're invited for interviews will be conducted entirely online for the first time this year. And looking at the future, I think, and that's a very personal note I have, we do have, I think nobody would disagree, that we're living a time of incredible instability and uncertainty. But looking at August of 2021, and if I was lucky enough to be in my 20s and smart enough to get into this program, I think there will be no place else in the world that I would like to be than, in the core of Beijing, in the top university in China, with some of the leading young leaders around the world in this very, very, very high quality program. I think seeing what the world will be in 2021 and beyond, and having your ticket to be there at that moment in history will be very consequential and incredible. So I'll turn things to Alicia, and maybe you can ask another question because I don't have many there.
One other thing I want to add is just, again, our focus, of course, is going to be our students. And so we have, when Tsinghua University was one of the first universities, we would say, that went fully virtual online education at the start of COVID-19. And right now, as one of my side projects, aside from just working with admissions, of course, it has been establishing a virtual community for our Schwarzman scholars for living and learning. And we are one of the first graduate programs in the world, to our knowledge, to have this type of platform to allow scholars to still have these, what makes Schwarzman scholars so special again, are the people. And so finding ways to encourage spontaneous interactions with one another was key for us. And so what's great about Schwarzman scholars, we are nimble, we are young, we are responsive, as Christian has mentioned. And so we are really able to leverage our position as being kind of a younger program in the higher education space to deliver the most cutting edge educational offerings that is available in the world. So the next question that came in, which is great, is we've focused a bit on the leadership part of the program, but can we talk a little bit more about global affairs and what are those opportunities for the scholars? We can briefly touch upon that because I know it's deviating a little bit away from the application process itself, but still trying to address those academic or professional interests that our applicants may have, and how does that apply in this context? Arlie, do you want to take it?
Sure, happy to jump into this one. So I think really to understand, to participate in this program is not only to understand China, but really the rest of the world. And so the exposure you have to global affairs, it's just in the teaching methodology we use in our classrooms. A lot of our classes aren't just taught by one professor, but are co-taught, giving you the opportunity to hear both the China perspective as well as the global perspective. And this, I think, is inherent in the curriculum and really the experience of a Schwarzman scholar. Christian, do you have anything to add on really how this experience is global?
Yeah, it's to your point and what Alicia had mentioned earlier, it is about that magic composition of difference, right? So that you have fellow classmates, fellow professors, you're surrounded by an international community at Tsinghua University. And so you're often running your set of assumptions through others, and then you'll start to hear patterns of, oh, that's interesting, oh, that's different, or that's wrong. And then we kind of embrace that conflict in a way where we're learning, because you can talk the talk, but then also want to make sure that people are acting and holding themselves to those values. And not only with the program delivery itself, but even in the co-curricular of student clubs, organizations, the deep dive, your mentorship, that they're all different tools of learning that global affairs piece. Is that when you're having that discussion about your version, their version, and then you start to co-author our version from that. And so it's so important to just have that international variability so that you will end up with a discussion or an end product that is more universally acceptable, because what you attribute as valuable might not meet the same value criteria of someone of your class. And so we encourage scholars to meet people who are so different from them, so they can learn from their own lived experiences, they can learn from their education systems, and then 20, 30 years from now, you have a renewable resource of insight and inspiration to be able to talk to one another and say, hey, how do I get to hear someone who's firsthand experiencing that challenge and be able to bring that and implement some of those ideas to my current context? And so even though this is 11 months in duration, it is a lifelong commitment to this goal of global affairs. And I think that the program has evolved in such a way where we have lots of different levers to be able to do that. We're getting a lot of questions about the essay prompts, about the short answer in particular, but I did want to first answer that we're not asking you to answer every single question in the essay prompts. They're designed to account for the variability of international education systems. And so they're meant to really give you bursts of, oh, I should write about this. Oh, I should write about that. It really is about what do I need to say? With that said, I wanted to flip this over to Alicia about trying to think about what should I put in the short answer? What makes a good short answer? But I think this is something that we've already talked about as well.
Yeah, again, I think what I want to emphasize for everyone again is we're reading your application holistically. So again, we're not going to be privileging one specific part of your application over another. There's not going to be one thing that is going to be the reason why you're tipped in or tipped out. We're looking at every single file in a holistic manner. So I want to emphasize that first and foremost. So then the next question, or the way I frame it, is how are you going to leverage what I say is your white blank space for your essays, right? So again, I want to emphasize that we want to look at your application holistically. And so you should leverage each writing opportunity, each recommender, to offer some more nuance and offer a more robust glimpse at who you are as a person. So I would really, it's going to be sounding like a non-answer, but again, this is just dependent on who you are and how you want to present yourself and author your application to the admissions committee. So there's lots of different ways of interweaving your components, but ultimately a few major tips. What we know in your curriculum vitae or your resume, you do not need to do, again, a regurgitation of everything that you've already listed out there. Perhaps it will be more useful for you to utilize this blank space to tell more of these stories, to bring out more context and detail of those things that you were just one bullet point long in your CV or something else like that. But again, it's going to be a holistic process, and it really is just those questions, as Christian mentioned, are going to be thought questions for you to help you get your brain juices thinking about what would work best. And so the other question I wanted to bring to my fellow colleagues, there are some people asking about, does it matter how many times I've reached out to the admissions office, I've participated in these webinars, or if I've interacted with current or past Schwarzman scholars? Is that a left to my advantage? How would we go about answering that? And so Arlie, why don't you take that away, and maybe Christian, you could add some more input too.
I mean, first of all, that's great that you've connected with officers, that you've connected with alumni. But if you're not, for those applicants who may not be watching this or don't have the resources available to them, that's also okay. We encourage all applicants to really, you know, search out as many resources, lean on your community. You know, this is really a reflective moment to think through your leadership experience. So, you know, even if you're not connected with your university or you haven't attended a webinar, you know, lean on your community. It really takes a village, and have these conversations with your recommenders. You know, don't just send them your the link to fill out the letter. Have a conversation. Maybe provide them with your essays to give them guidance on how you're approaching the Schwarzman Scholars application. Talk to your friends, as Christian mentioned earlier in the webinar. You know, if you're having, if you're questioning how to go about the video, ask your friends, like, how do you see me? And so, you know, lean on your friends and family, and this should be a really reflective time as you think through the application. So that's a tip from me as we close out today's webinar. For those questions we weren't able to get to, we encourage you to reach out to admissions@schwarzmanscholars.org. We are still here until the deadline. I'll popcorn over to Christian, and then we'll hear from Frey and Alicia on any other final tips or advice before we close out today.
Thank you so much, Arlie. This process is a self-excavation exercise, and we are the worst at trying to understand who we are because we conflate who we are with who we want to be. And so when it comes down to the authentic leadership piece, it is important to walk this journey alongside other people. And it's not about who you know, it's about who you are. And so take the time to do all the word, like kind of download, and be able to put that on the page. And then you pick and choose what's actually important. You pick and choose the gems, and that's what you're going to put forward on the application. My top tip is about thinking about where is growth measured in your application. You have to build some kind of tension in some way about how far your journey has been. And it could be that you were born into a situation where you've encountered a lot of challenges or not. But it is about thinking about when you use those experiences to inform the mental models of how you are a leader, you have to be able to connect that to show how those values are exercised in your life, in your different organizations, in your workplace, etc. So really do think about where is the tension in the story that I'm trying to create here? Who am I looking to serve? How did I work past adversity? And if there was no adversity, great, then how am I still using those gifts to help change the world for the better? So do think about where growth is being showcased in your application process. Flipping it over to Federico.
Hey, thank you, guys. I mean, there's not much left to say. And I think, you know, one thing that covers all the questions that unfortunately we couldn't answer here, but questions from, you know, how to approach the short answer, or the breakdown between academic and non-academic reference. There are a bunch of technical questions that we can reply again via email. But I think, you know, the overall idea, and perhaps that's my tip beyond the use your village, use your peers, recommenders, mentors, colleagues, friends to do that. But more than that too, in addition to that, or as you do that, also think strategically. And I think my number one word perhaps for today, it changes every day, but it's consistency. Right, as we're entering the last month now, the last few weeks before application deadline, don't leave it to the last day to submit. Try to do it, as soon as possible. But I think try to be consistent overall. Remember that, different than other admissions processes that you have to submit a very specific project detailing your hypothesis, your variables or stuff like that. This is not a program that demands you to have a very definite project, but this doesn't mean you don't have to have a consistent narrative throughout that and what you want to come across. Like applications that we cannot, I think one question was about the main pitfalls of applications or the main problems or common mistakes of applications. And I can say that there are two types of bad or inconsistent applications. One are the ones that are just not proofread, they're not complete, they're not submitted on time. These are obviously the bad applications, but there are others who are very well crafted, they're very polished, they are proofread, they have very good letters of recommendation, but after reading the whole material, we come across and we still don't get a sense of who this candidate is, right? So I think whatever you're trying to say, try to expose and demonstrate to the admissions committee where you are in your life, why China, why this program, and why this is the right time and you're the right person to be chosen for this program and how this program can help you and how you can help the program. There are multiple questions to be addressed, but it's possible to do that in a consistent way. Not easy though. So with that, I turn things over to Alicia, and I thank everybody again for joining us today. It's really, really incredible.
I think to just add one other little tip that I've been saying to many people who I've been advising so far that draws upon the responses from Christian, from Frey and Arlie. This process, I want you to frame it as, regardless of the outcome, this was a value add. It was a really good checking point with yourself. Are you honest? Are you trying to position yourself to be where you want to be in a few years as well? And so when you're getting ready to submit your application, double check with yourself and say, did I put my best foot forward, right? If there's anything, you don't want to come, later on towards the end of this year, regardless of the outcome, and have those what if moments. Oh, what if I just asked another recommender and said, what if I just had some more time? Maybe I should have included something else. You want to use this moment in time before you click submit to ask yourself, what are these things that I need to address so my future self will be acceptable with the outcome, no matter what the decision is. And so really just, again, understanding your why, doing that hard work of unpacking who you are and creating that consistent narrative, as Frey was just mentioning earlier, that's going to really help you regardless of this decision. And I also encourage you all, there's a few of these questions we were unable to address live, but they were addressed in our previous webinars or featured spotlight series. Many of them are going to be, are still available online for you to peruse. And we will also send another thank you follow-up email with just additional resources for you as we count down the days for our deadline. And again, thank you all so much for your time. Arlie or Christian, any other wrap-up tips?
I'll go ahead and jump in just to say thank you everyone for your time, and we look forward to receiving your applications. Again, tomorrow marks day 20 days until the deadline. So work hard and reach out as you need. So take care, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye-bye now.